2820685. Thank you, Deacon Renee Wise, our station manager here at the Boston Praise Radio and TV Network. Kingdom, greetings and God's richest blessings be multiplied to you and yours. You're tuned into another segment of Healing Our Land's live, interactive, worldwide broadcast exclusively here on the Boston Praise Radio and TV Network. I'll be your host through till 6 p.m. We've got a guest from 4 to 5, another scheduled from 5 to 6, and our meeting immediately post, so non-stop day. But God is good. Our guests are at the door, so I am going to multitask. Bear with me. You will hear silence as we are transitioning. Bear with us with the silence and bear with me with the awkwardness of the pause, but I'll be back in just a moment. God bless you. Again, please forgive me for the pause. We're back on the air. Our guest is arrived and they will be seated and situated momentarily. But while we're waiting for them to get situated, running a little late on this morning, I am going to continue to try to engage you. Again, you're tuned into Healing Our Lands broadcast. Before I go, let me remind you, this coming Sunday, June 28th, this coming Sunday, June 28th, 2026, 4 p.m. to 6 p.m. will be Boston Praise Radio and TV Network's telethon. This is our effort to raise resources as well as have fellowship amongst the body of Christ and advance the kingdom of God. Faith over the air. Boston's only Black-owned, FCC-licensed multimedia platform here in the city of Boston that's church-based. Our founder and overseer, Pastor Emeritus Bruce Wall, is the senior pastor of Global Ministries Christian Church. Additionally, he is the founder of Boston Praise Radio and TV Network. And 77 years young, he is getting ready to transition to Pastor Emeritus from senior pastor on August 30th. And this is his legacy. Boston Praise Radio and TV Network. That's Matthew 28, 19 in action, that we're to reach the lost for Christ and to create biblical communities where we can heal, we can mature, and we can walk in wholeness. Again, we are in the midst of a campaign being Healing Our Land and the Empowering Descendant Communities to Unlock Democracy via a grant we received from the Harvard and its Impact Grant to reconcile with their role of their legacy of slavery. And so we're so pleased and excited to have this grant. We're tonight actually preparing to prepare our 6-month progress report. And then we will have a conclusion at the end of the year. And we'll hopefully be set up to move further in restoring the rights of people who were serving felony convictions to vote while they are incarcerated throughout the Commonwealth, as we build a robust model in the Suffolk County that we can replicate across all the other counties in the state of Massachusetts, so that the infrastructure is in place for people to exercise their right to vote, so that they know they have the right to vote. You should know in Massachusetts, if you have a felony conviction and you've served your time and you're in community, you can vote. If you are on probation or parole post being incarcerated with a felony conviction, you can vote. The only exception that you're not allowed to vote, excuse me, right there, brother. Thank you, brother. Our guest has arrived and we're going to get situated and welcome them as we transition. How are you, sir?
Doing good.
Outstanding. Thanks for being
Doing great. Thanks for having me.
It is our pleasure. So we're going to just jump right into it. Sorry for the chair being a little discombobulated.
We're gonna make it work. We're gonna make it work.
There we go. So let me just adjust the camera here so that people can see and hear us. And if you don't mind putting on your headset so that you can be able to hear what is going over the airwaves, and hopefully our guests that will be tuning in, you'll be able to hear and engage them. But without further ado, let me apologize because this is my first time actually meeting you, I believe.
Yes, absolutely.
Okay. So typically I like to be a little bit more prepared before a broadcast so that I can, but I quickly, as we've been moving real time, real fast in our grassroots movement in our organization to try to restore the rights of people who are serving felony convictions to vote in the state of Massachusetts, while we're simultaneously building infrastructure for people to exercise that right across the Commonwealth, as well as to do that intelligently by being able to be informed of who are the candidates, what are the positions, doing civic education. So that's our robust campaign that I was just explaining, that we are doing via our Empowering Descendant Communities to Unlock Democracy initiative. That's a grant we received from Harvard University and their effort to reckon with their role of slavery. So that's what we're doing, being healing our land and empowering descendant communities to unlock democracy. I apologize for the temperature. We don't have air conditioning up in this place. We are grassroots, real grassroots, right? And we're hopeful. In fact, I was just sharing before you came on that we do a telethon every fourth Sunday of the month. That'll be this coming Sunday from 4 to 6. We're encouraging people to tune in and to help us to raise the resources that we can get air conditioned, that we can get staff, that we can, we're the only Black-owned, FCC licensed multimedia platform that's church-based I would say within the state of Massachusetts, right? Okay. And so our visionary Pastor Bruce Wall, 77 years young, God gave him this vision over 15 years ago, and it's sustained, but now we wanted to actually we need resources for it to continue to be sustained and ultimately for it to thrive, for the full vision to come to fruition. So we're having some conversations about how do we take it to the next level in terms of having our own media platform that we control, that is going to be nonpartisan, non-biased, but have the difficult conversations that we need to have that are not a monolith. Does that make sense?
That makes all the sense in the world.
So in the process of preparing, like we're moving real time to everything that we're doing. And again, Alan, thanks for being able to set up some of these interviews with our candidates. And again, we're building this infrastructure in this movement real time as it's just kind of happening and evolving organically. But I see here, if this is the correct, I quickly went to do a little research just to prepare myself as optimally as I could with the limited time. But are you Charles, AKA Castro Rosario?
Yes.
All right. So I got that. So thank you, Holy Spirit, because I literally just said, okay, I realized that there was a brother named Charles Rosario. I'm sure there are many Charles Rosarios. No?
Okay. I mean, I haven't met.
You haven't met one?
No.
Interesting. No. Okay. Well, Charles is a common name. Rosario.
I always actually thought that Charles and Rosario didn't actually really go together.
Huh.
Yeah, interesting.
Interesting. You've never met a Charles Rosario?
I think maybe in trying to Google myself or things of that nature, right. I think I have come across other individuals with that same name in the country.
Okay.
But not locally, no, and not in person.
Okay. So it's interesting because, again, as I went to prepare, there's more than one that came up, but the one that I thought was you is correct. So you're an advocate. It says advocates rally to, quote, raise the age at Massachusetts State House. So that's your initiative, your agenda?
Well, that's one of the things that I do.
Okay.
And I was involved in a lot of organizing with my previous employment, which was at a nonprofit called UTEC.
Of course.
That serves Lowell, Lawrence, and Haverhill areas.
Absolutely.
Emerging adults from 18 to 25 years old that are system impacted. So as part of that organization, I did a lot of organizing work with the young adults there. My primary position is program coordinator for the Emerson Prison Initiative.
Oh, that's where I met you. I did meet you. Because now I remember. I met you at that particular conference when they were having the Thrive Film Festival.
In Thrive Film Festival. Absolutely.
In Thrive. Wow, okay, now it's all connecting because there, as a gentleman, God rest his soul, in the person of Supreme, is that his name? Sincere, forgive me, thank you, Holy Spirit. Sincere Allah, I believe was his name. Did you know him?
I do know I know a couple of Sinceres, but I'm not sure if I know the one you mentioned.
Well, this particular brother is from Boston, but he moved to actually Virginia and he's directly impacted, a brother who has done a lot of advocacy around restoration of voting rights for those who are incarcerated. Interesting enough, so his grandmother was State Representative Gloria Fox.
Okay.
You familiar with who she is?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
She, from my understanding, most recently via Senator Wilkerson, it says that she made a commitment to educate everyone every Juneteenth that we just passed, that she was the state representative that initially filed that to make that a thing here in the state of Massachusetts. Other people have followed and done iterations of it, but she was the original person who advocated for Massachusetts to recognize Juneteenth as a Black, as I believe one of the first Black women state representatives in the state of Massachusetts. And so it's interesting because I've worked with State Representative Gloria Fox in Healing Our Land's infancy stages when we were working a lot around HIV and AIDS. And I don't know how young a man you are, but when it was a death sentence, I want to say the 80s, if I'm not mistaken, but there was a time that HIV was not the chronic manageable disease that it is today.
Correct.
But it was a death sentence that people didn't live with it, but you died from it.
Right.
And it was like everything, disproportionately impacts Black and brown and poor people and the underserved and the marginalized. And certainly that would be the prison population.
For sure.
Right. So that was really quite candidly my impetus to doing prison work was very intentional to address an underserved community that was at high risk for infection and infecting, right? Whatever the reasons might be, nonetheless, this is a population that people don't care about, don't think about, who have a lot of challenges that are social and economic, that are structural, that are the precursors to set you up. That's a relic of slavery.
Absolutely.
I mean, we know the 13th Amendment says slavery was abolished with the exception of those who've been convicted of a crime. Even again, talking about Juneteenth, while we celebrate this freedom that we allegedly have, that we didn't know that we had for years, right? There's a population that's still enslaved today. And the 13th Amendment of the U.S. Constitution justifies that across our entire country, that we're now celebrating 250 years of its founding. That was on stolen land and that was built by the transatlantic human trafficking, slave trafficking, right? 400 years of free labor. So how do you celebrate something you haven't even acknowledged the foundation? Talk about the founding. Well, let's acknowledge the wrong that was the foundation for which you established this thing that you're taking such pride in.
Absolutely.
So I know I said a whole lot.
Well said, brother.
but that's what we're doing. And so it's interesting. Working with my brother, I had the opportunity to travel to the sentencing project as I do almost every year since we've been doing this rights, universal votes, restoration, and jail-based voting advocacy. So Nicole Porter from the sentencing project, and they've been supportive of our work. Our work is led by those who are directly impacted. Brothers from MCI Norfolk at the AAC, the African American Coalition Committee, they have driven our work. We do a mirror model. We see ourselves in them. Hope they see ourselves in us. Yeah. But our work is led by the AACC, and not just the AACC, but those who are directly impacted. But I have to give a shout out to the AACC because they've been the leaders who helped us, who've been advocating for this for a long time. They're the institution that really was the impetus of the rights being stripped from us in the first place, because they were using it and creating political action blocks. And Cellucci, the governor at the time, felt that was too much power. He didn't say that, but I understand the essence of what he said was, if these people can't follow the basic rules, they don't deserve the right to vote. I mean, I don't know what happened to all men are given these unalienable. How is it unalienable if you can take it? A right. A right is not a privilege. It's a right. Absolutely. So we just have to do the education because people don't understand that history. And in Massachusetts, you could vote even serving a felony conviction up until 2000. Just like Vermont, just like Maine, that's been their history and that hasn't changed. Unfortunately, we know the hue and the economic bracket of those folks in those geographic areas tend to not be Black and brown and poor. For sure. So it's not ironic that these particular places, you can still vote as a convicted felon serving time. And in DC, that's a newer entity, but here in Massachusetts, we were part of that Commonwealth that could, and now that's been stripped. And so thousands of people have been disenfranchised. There's a piece of legislation, Senate Bill 524, that Senator Miranda just refiled, right, because a different iteration of the same legislation. And it sits in the Ways and Means Committee right now. And we're encouraging everyone to call your senator or every senator you have influence on and tell them, one, to vote favorably for this, two, pull it to the floor for a vote, because it will just sit there, right? And it's sitting, and this is not even about budget. While they're fighting over budget and line items, right, for the Ways and Means Committee where this piece of legislation sits, this piece of legislation isn't about money, but it's about policy.
Right.
And it's just the right thing to do. This will restore the right for people to vote in presidential elections and municipal elections, even serving felony convictions. So it doesn't give us the full thing that we're endeavoring to do that would include state elections, but it's still a portion of that if everybody does their part,
Right.
we can make a large voting bloc that's been disenfranchised be re-enfranchised. And I would submit that our voting turnout is dismal for those who are not incarcerated, right? 13% of the population that was registered to vote actually bothered to cast a ballot in the primary election for our mayor, right? And this is not about whom we should vote for because we're nonpartisan,
Right.
but it's about we should vote.
We should be civically active.
We should be civically active.
Civically engaged. And the ironic thing is that inside the prison,
Yes,
individuals become very civically engaged
they do.
and civically aware
Come on.
of what's going on in their communities.
Facts.
You know, there's a lot of awakening
Yes.
in prison that happens, and a lot of individuals become aware of their power and become aware of what they're capable of, or what we as a community are capable of if we unite and we come together, you know, to fight for a common cause.
I'm glad you said that, because as a result of doing what we've been doing for a year and a half, because this is a 2-year, actually quite candidly, we've been doing it for almost like I said, 25 years. We've been going behind the wall at Suffolk County. So even before we got this grant, we've been doing this work consistently. And shout out to Sheriff Tompkins as the only Black sheriff in the whole state that has been affording us access to this population for this period of time, in contrast to sheriffs across the Commonwealth that won't even allow volunteers to come in and educate the population that you got the right to vote.
For sure.
Never mind bringing the paperwork, the absentee ballot applications and the registration forms, that now you can exercise that right, and then layer that with doing civic education that we help you to do that intelligently.
Right.
So we're trying to build a robust model in the Suffolk County that we can replicate across the Commonwealth. We're trying to institutionalize the mobile ballot box initiative, just as you and I have agency in so many instances to cast our ballot, whether you're going to the registry. You have to be intentional to opt out of the process.
For sure.
Because if you want to get a license, you got to sign up for the register, right? You got to register, right?
Register.
Whether you vote or not, you got to register, right? That's what you got to do. If you want food stamps, if you want different things, they send you a paper, because these are resources. And as a person who's civically engaged, so that you have to consistently say, no. They send it to your house, mail in ballots, right? You got all these ways to be civically engaged, and we're not like we should be. So here's a population, as you said, once they're awakened, they want to be engaged, but they need one, to know they have the power, two, the infrastructure to exercise it, and three, the ability to do that intelligently via education. So we're hopeful again that we can make this a robust model, that we can replicate that from what's happening. Our jail-based ambassadors, who many people are waiting pre-trial. And you know that if you're waiting pre-trial, you actually don't have access to any programs.
Right.
You don't get access to programs until you get sentenced.
You're just on standby. That's basically what you are when you're pre-trial, because you're considered innocent. But if you can't afford a certain amount of money to bail yourself out, or even if you have bail, because most individuals don't even get bail, and you know, then you're just sitting waiting to see what happens with your process, and you're in limbo.
And there's people literally, brother, who are waiting at the Suffolk County House of Correction who have been pre-trial, right? 5-6 years.
For sure.
Because they're so backed up. And then high profile cases take precedence. They shut the whole place down to be able, for security, for a high profile case. So your case gets pushed further back.
Absolutely. And it's also a strategy of the district attorneys as well, to just prolong, hoping that you'll take a plea deal. And, you know, a lot of guys are innocent You know, we see the stories all the time of guys coming home flipping their cases that were wrongfully convicted. There's a lot of individuals that are wrongfully imprisoned and at the pretrial stage. And, you know, that's a tactic that the district attorneys use to put the pressure on people to just plead out.
It's true. And we hear it so often. Again, full circle to the African American Coalition Committee that has numbers of pieces of legislation that they're advocating for and prioritize. I believe one is actually life without parole.
Right.
I believe that's one, right? Another one is this, what do they call it? It's a theory.
Joint venture.
Thank you. Joint venture. That one. Joint venture. To your point, swooping everybody all up, and just because you were in proximity or whatever,
Right.
and they scoop all these. So many people are not. They're wrongfully convicted and caught up into this joint venture theory.
Right. It's just that joint venture theory just allows you to really scoop up guys off the street
That's
with
it.
a wide net.
That's it.
Oh, you close proximity. Oh, you know him. Oh, conspiracy. Let's go.
Yep.
All of you guys are equally responsible for the thing.
Yep. And then add that another piece of legislation that has to be addressed. I'm hearing this resoundingly from people whom, once we're going behind the walls, I'm hearing everybody who's a convicted felon or serving time saying, fix that first.
For sure.
Right? Fix that. And then, because they don't even have any hope or really incentive to be engaged because you feel powerless.
Absolutely.
So they're saying, fix that. So we're working on that. We're all working on that. But with that said, simultaneously, other pieces of legislation that are disproportionately impacted Black and brown and poor folks. So the joint venture is definitely another whole thing that too many people are getting caught up into. The other one is dangerous hearings.
Yes.
Dangerousness hearings.
Dangerousness hearings, correct.
Right. That whole thing. And I'm curious to hear your perspective, because I'm hearing, in contrast, and I raised Sister Rachel Rollins most recently, who was on a forum talking about just about civic education. And because so many guys asked me to ask her very specifically about addressing dangerous hearings. She's come with us behind the wall, going from unit to unit. She has a whole nonprofit organization called The Fort to address those who are directly impacted. So this is before she announced her candidacy to run again. And quite candidly, many guys and girls behind the wall who saw her and appreciated what she's doing said, you need to run again. We need you back in that position. And she did that. So to your point about people becoming aware and being engaged and using their voice to have candidates that they feel are going to resonate with addressing reentry in a fair way.
Absolutely.
And so I asked her about about the dangerous hearings, and she said, and very specific about the what I want to say, the double standard, if you will. When we're talking about correctional officers or police officers whom and the situation with O'Malley, who shot the young man, help me Holy Spirit. Oh, what was his name? Stevenson King Jr. That was a gentleman who's like our George Floyd, Ben Crump and other people are saying, right? Siddiqui Cambone, other brothers saying this is our George Floyd, because this was publicly seen of a white police officer who shot to death a man who was in a car that alleged that he stole, but it was a moving vehicle that he shot into, and the man died. With that said, the district attorney, Kevin Hayden, charged him with manslaughter. This is unprecedented. You don't hear that often. The DA doesn't often challenge a police officer. They often work it together. Mm-hmm. So that's something that people are like, oh, wow, they're saying, but is this real? Is it political? Because he is up for re-election. There are people who are running against him, Rachel being one, Linda Champion another one, right? So with that said, people are asking the question because so to my point about the contrast of the dangerous hearing. So here's a police officer who doesn't have a dangerous hearing,
right?
Doesn't have bail. He's home on his personal recognizance, raised millions of dollars. Police packed the courtroom, intimidation, right? And more than likely, he's not going to actually be sentenced, though he's been charged. And he must have been charged because the body cam was very damning. For you to make that decision that quickly and to even make a charge, it must be. And the community has unanimously challenged the city council, and they've said, yes, release the body camera. footage,
Mhm.
and the district attorney will not, because he says it will compromise the case. In contrast to a person who's a person of color, when you get charged, you don't get manslaughter.
You don't get none of those benefits.
You don't get none of those
You
benefits.
get charged with the worst charge possible, the most severe charge possible, and then you have to work your way down from that, while you're considered innocent until proven guilty. With a dangerousness hearing that makes a determination on how dangerous you are when you're not even convicted of a crime. Why are you making this determination on how dangerous I am to determine whether you're going to keep me in prison while I fight my case or not? And I'm not even considered guilty. I'm innocent.
And talk about, because you know this better than me, I'm learning this from people directly impacted and trying to just raise it to the general public so that we're aware and can be engaged in these disparities of laws that disproportionately impact Black and brown and poor people.
Absolutely.
So talk about what the danger is here is. Now, with that said, so off the rip, you're charged with dangerous, right? You are off the streets. You don't have bail, right? So talk about the bail piece, because I know that there's like a number of days that you're there that's supposed to be exhausted. And so I don't know all the nuances, but educate me and our audience about how that plays out with dangerousness hearings.
Well, the dangerousness hearing is a tool that the district attorneys used to influence whether you will get bail or not.
Okay.
So they kind of go hand in hand.
Okay.
And usually if the judge finds you dangerous, they will hold you and without bail. And that is, like I said, it's a tactic, that the district attorneys use to kind of, it puts the squeeze on guys as well, because now you have no bail. You're incarcerated, fighting your case. It does lead one to be desperate and to, make a decision against his own best interest just because he is in an unbearable condition, incarcerated. And that's really what the dangerousness hearing really does. It really strips you of the opportunity to get bail and bail yourself out.
But isn't there a period of time, like a matter of days, I think that if you exhaust that number of days, that like you're supposed to be able to, I guess, I don't know, dismiss it or get out or I don't know, some nuance about a number of days expiring.
Yeah, there's a timeline for whether you can be indicted on a case or not.
Okay.
And a lot of times those days don't expire because district attorneys have a lot of ways of extending. All they have to do is appeal to the judge and say, Judge, I need more time to review the case, or we have some more evidence, or this or that. And the judges always, concede to that type of situation with the district attorneys. Because it's really just basically what the district attorney says and fines, and a lot of the things that they use aren't even proven things.
Mm-hmm.
It's just their assessment of who you are, or the community you come from, or who you may be friends with, and they use all of that. They compile all that information, and then they use it against you to make a determination on whether you should be taken off the streets and not given any bail.
And in a situation where this one brother who comes to my mind, who was at the Suffolk County House of Correction, he was able to beat a case, right? This is in the context of dangerousness, right? He was able to beat one case, however they did that, but his lawyer was able to do that. Now, to your point, now he was able to beat that charge. Now he's in a position to advocate for bail, but he also has to do this 6-month plan of what he's going to do, right? And we're trying to put together the package now to help advocate. So when he stands before, now that he beat this, now the next case, now you're up for bail, but you have to have a plan.
Right.
And we got to help you create this plan. So your boss and, people and this is again, a person who's pre-trial, right? But he's been engaged with us, with our reimagining democracy.
Right.
And as a result of that, so these brothers are getting involved where you don't have to get involved, but you want to get involved because you're building community and people, and you're understanding the importance of being civic engaged and using your voice and accessing additional supports within community to change your trajectory of life.
For sure. Absolutely. I agree with that wholeheartedly.
So full circle again. So my brother, Supreme Sincere. I always get these names, these righteous names, Sincere. And I can think of that because he is a very sincere brother, beautiful brother. And again, so I had the privilege, I presented at the conference in Chicago, and we were talking about the jail-based voting work that we're doing here in Boston.
Okay.
And so immediately he was like, "You must know my grandmother, State Representative Gloria Fox." I'm like, "Of course." And not only do I know your grandmother, I actually knew his father, who was a big supporter, Darrell Fox, of Healing Our Land in its infancy stages around HIV and AIDS.
Right.
And so it was full circle that this brother reached out to me to facilitate, to have us support him in hosting the In Thrive Film Festival here in the city of Boston. So he came here, talked about it, right? We shared it. We went to every event, like, and from that, one of those places was Emerson College.
Wow.
And we've heard so much about Emerson College. Many of our brothers and sisters, who are part of the Emerson Prison Initiative. That's an amazing program that you can talk more about. But, so that was my impetus. Those films were amazing, right? And so I met yourself. I met the gentleman that did the In Thrive. I met another professor. I can't recall her name. I'm sure you know her. What's her name?
Manisha Gelman.
European sister. When I say she's European, this is I think she's over the whole prison initiative.
I think that might be Manisha Gelman. Yeah.
Okay.
She's a director. She's the director of the program.
Was she at that table at the front there, and maybe a taller woman?
Betsy Chase, maybe.
That's her.
That's
her.
Yeah.
What's Betsy Chase's capacity?
She's the program director. No, not director. She's the recoup director of the reentry wing of our program. She's my supervisor.
Okay, all right.
Yeah, I kind of stepped into her role a little bit, and she moved up.
Hey man,
yeah.
Hey man, good stuff. So with that said, that brings us full circle to tell us who is. Don't tell me. I'm gonna pull it up here. I just had it. Who is Charles Rosario? Right. Tell us a little bit about who you are in your journey to where you are now, and about the programming that you're involved at Emerson.
Sure. I'll begin with very early on in my life. I was born in Caracas, Venezuela. My mother was a Dominican immigrant. She immigrated to Venezuela in the early 80s. Back in the days, Venezuela had a really good economy, really different political system. It was considered like the Miami of South America. And a lot of Dominicans would immigrate to Venezuela around that time to work, make some money, and send it back home. And my mother was one of those people. She met my father. She gave birth to me, but she only kept me in Venezuela for 54 days. Then she took me to Dominican Republic. I ended up coming to America when I was 4 years old, and up until that point, I didn't spend much time with my mother. Most of that time was spent with my grandmother, extended family over there in Dominican Republic. So I came finally to America, came to Worcester, Massachusetts, and when I got here, it was culture shock, but I was very young and I picked up the culture very quickly and the language very quickly, and not having a father figure and not having older brothers or anything like that, I was a very impressionable young child. So unfortunately, a lot of the individuals that I looked up to when I was young were individuals who were involved in, negative things, things that were going on in the community. And I also, fell victim to a lot of that stuff myself. I became, as a juvenile, I was incarcerated in a bunch of different juvenile programs. I was incarcerated till I was 18 to DYS on 3 separate occasions, and then finally I graduated to the adult system. I just couldn't get it together. Troubled youth, and at 21 years old, I caught my most serious offense that I ended up spending 19 years in prison for. And during those 19 years, there was a lot of transformation that was happening in my life. It was revealed to me who my real friends were, who my real family were, and the individuals who really cared and had my best interests at heart. And I made a decision in my incarceration that I was going to do what was best for me, as opposed to me always sacrificing for others or putting myself in predicaments from out of my loyalty and things of that nature. So I ended up taking my destiny in my own hands, and I started pursuing programs and doing things like that because I just didn't want to remain in prison. I knew that I had this opportunity to get home if I really applied myself to transformation and to positive things. And that's what I ended up doing. And then finally I made it out of the maximum security prison, Shirley Max. Most people know it as Sousa Baranowski. And then when I ended up getting out of there, I went to the Medium in Concord, where there were a lot more programs to get involved with. And I made a decision that I was going to do a lot of more programs and get more involved in those pro-social positive things that were happening in the prison. And eventually I went from just somebody who was starting to attend them and partake in these programs, and I actually became somebody who started to facilitate these programs and became a leader in a lot of these spaces. And then in 2017, the Emerson Prison Initiative came to Concord, and it was something that I've always wanted to do. My mother always stressed education to me. That was one of the biggest values that she held on to, because for her, she never had the opportunity to go to school. My mother was raised in the countryside of Dominican Republic. She was pulled out of school in elementary school. Many siblings that she had, she was one of the oldest, so she had to really like be somebody who helped support the family. And she couldn't really just, pursue her educational aspirations that she had, as she expressed to me many times that she had. And she loved school, she loved learning. So she always, made sure that she instilled that value in me. So regardless of whether I was in the streets or whatever I was doing, I always was a person who loved to learn and valued education. So when the opportunity came for me to go to college, I jumped at it full fledged. And I was lucky. I was one of the 20 lucky individuals who got in, because about 120 some odd people applied actually and showed a lot of interest in getting into this program, but they only selected 20, first cohort, and I was lucky enough to get in that, and that was transformational as well. It was interesting to me and fascinating to me to measure up. I wanted to see how I measured up against other, college students that were on the out, that didn't live the same life that I did, walk the same path that I did, and I met a lot of great brothers in there that we're still really close now. And Emerson Prison Initiative, it was instrumental in helping us realize a different future for ourselves. I graduated in 2022 from that program, and then in 2023 I was released. I was released on parole. And for my first year out, I was working with that organization that I mentioned earlier, UTEC. But then about a year into that job, Emerson had gotten some funding to hire another position. And the leadership of the Emerson Prison Initiative, they wanted to hire somebody that had lived experience, somebody that had even gone through the program. So they reached out to a couple of us that were out, and they encouraged us to apply for the position. And I was one of the individuals who applied for that position, and then I ended up getting the position. So I became the first staff member who was formally incarcerated, part of the program, had gone through it, an alum of the program, and now I'm staff. So it came full circle for me, from me being somebody that was in prison, sentenced to second-degree life sentence. Basically, what that means is sentenced to life with the possibility of parole. Not the guarantee of parole, but the possibility of parole at some point. And then coming out and then getting the job and finally, being on the staff and helping other guys get their lives together when they come out, and and helping run the program, make sure that everything is going according to plan with the program. It's been really humbling, and it's an honor to assist my brothers that are still behind the wall, and it's not something that I take lightly, and I'm very grateful for it and blessed, and I think everybody that helped me to get to where I'm at.
It's an amazing story, brother. So, and I hear this story, a resounding theme, right, of brothers whom father not in your life, right? The streets being something that becomes, a sense of community.
Correct.
Right. And provision and unity and some sense of, however, that, ends up being something that ends people in incarceration. And then in incarceration is where education often becomes something that it becomes important. People who may be even illiterate,
For sure.
but learn to read, even if it's something that maybe not people may not perceive to be positive, but it was something intriguing.
Right.
Right. One brother talked about how the books that he read, that was how he became literate. It was a conference we went to that was actually there was a consortium, and it had literally houses of correction from across the Commonwealth, and was talking about the role of education with and support of community that changes the trajectory of people incarcerated, coming out, finding a voice, finding a purpose, and a tool to facilitate working through some of that trauma.
Right. Correct. And that resonates with me. That's exactly what my life was all about. Like, I found a sense of community within those four walls that we consider the classroom, right? There were a lot of individuals in these classrooms that I would not have bonded with or had even any interactions or conversations with had it not been for that classroom structure.
Yeah.
And a lot of these individuals are out now, and we remain friends and community to this day.
Yeah.
And we encourage each other.
Yeah.
We're all in positive spaces. We may be in different organizations, but when one organization needs some support and needs guys to show up, we show up. We pull brothers up. Sometimes brothers may be going through depression or mental health issues, and we check in on brothers and make sure brothers are good, and if they need somebody to talk to or something like that, we tend to really show up for each other, and it's something that's changing the narrative out here in these streets. And you see a lot of brothers that aren't even involved with college and prison programs while they're doing their time, but they're seeing the impact and they're seeing the community that we're building out here and the positivity around what we're doing.
Yep.
And they want to be involved.
Sure.
There are a lot of brothers who have not had any experience with the college and prison programs, but they want to be involved with what we got going on. And it's amazing to see, because like all it takes is that, that energy. Like one person may not be able to do it, but that one person may be able to influence another person to join on board and things like that. And it's contagious. That positivity is really contagious. Because I say, just the same as we are motivating individuals and influencing individuals to want to come home and do the right thing and do positive things, if we were out here doing negative things, we would be influences individuals to want to do that as well. Because we're looked at as influential, we're looked at as individuals who have been there, that we're credible. So what we do and what we're out here promoting and advocating for really has a significant impact on the psyche of the individuals on the inside. I remember going in for the graduation of the second cohort, and it took me aback to see how grateful individuals were to the work that I'm continuing to do out here. Not just me, but a lot of the brothers. They were so thankful and grateful. Like, bro, thank you for what you're doing out there, for continuing the fight. You haven't forgot about us, because they're connecting what I'm doing to their liberation, and not only their liberation of physical but mental.
Yes.
There were a lot. It's what I'm doing and other individuals are doing is allowing them to see themselves in our position, because they know us.
Yes.
They have a personal relationship with us. So when they see us coming in, suited and booted, looking really good and dapper, and coming in representing our programs and our organizations, and we're doing this type of work, they're like, wow, like, I remember when you were so different.
Yes.
And now looking at you now, I'm proud of you. I'm almost in awe of what you're doing, and it gives me hope that I could strive for that as well.
No, it's beautiful, brother. What you're talking about is creating what I call it a state of emergency healing and empowering movement, right? Because it's a movement that's about healing and empowering. Right? As we're woke or enlightened or in our process that's lifelong of healing, right? Then we can lift others and help them and push and do prevention, right? Because you talk about credible messengers, right? People who know you, right? Seeing you and see the evolution, the transformation is inspiring.
For sure.
Because it's daunting to feel that I can be somebody different than who I've embraced, as this is who I am and what I've become.
Absolutely.
And you just feel limited to that's all you, that's your destiny.
For sure. And in our core selves, I feel like there is a fundamental belief in our own goodness and our own greatness.
Yeah.
But I think that gets beat down
Sure
so
it does.
much.
Yeah.
So much.
Yeah.
By our environment,
Yep.
by people,
Yeah.
by, these invisible, structures
Yeah,
that are systemic and are intentionally designed
Yes.
to do that.
Yes.
So our job really is part of our job. We have many jobs
Yes.
and many roles that we play, but one of them is really to deconstruct that and
Yeah,
become models
bro. Yes.
of change
Yes.
and inspiration just by being an example of that and exemplifying these things that we're in prison working towards and doing. We're not just doing it in prison just to get out or just to say that we're involved in these things. No, we're actually putting them into practice.
Mm-hmm. Let me go here real quick, because to your point about putting them in practice, there's people who've done time, that there's this whole thing called post-incarceration syndrome, right? And I hear you talking about the community, the classroom that is organically or sovereignly orchestrated, that you have people who maybe would not even acknowledge or engage people. But
Right.
now in this particular setting, you're forced to kind of look at maybe opening up your mind
Right.
to being like seeing people as human beings,
Right.
not I'm this, you're that, and we all have our little silos, but that we're humans.
Right.
And we're in a system that is designed to have us fighting each other.
Absolutely.
As opposed to our own demons,
Absolutely.
our own, prejudices, right? And the systems that set us up for that to happen, to fight each other rather than ourselves and the systems.
For sure. Because, prison is a dehumanizing space. And a lot of the things that we internalize, they become exacerbated while they're in prison. One thing about the classroom, though, is that you need an open mind to learn.
Yes, talk about that part.
So just the act of opening your mind enough to learn something is enough to start stripping away that ignorance and that bias and all these things that keep you from engaging with other individuals that may be from other communities. Because to be honest with you, we have way more in common than we do apart. But what separates us is what becomes highlighted.
Yep.
And it becomes it's fed a lot more than what we have in common.
It's true.
So when you have an open mind to learn and you have an open mind to discuss certain subjects that we may be studying and reading about, and then somebody else has a certain opinion and it becomes almost like a think tank where everybody's opinion matters. Everybody's voice, everybody has something to contribute. Mm-hmm. That's the building block of community right there.
It's the building block of community. I love the restorative justice practices. I'm not sure you're familiar with the restorative justice practices.
Absolutely.
Is that something that that you've been introduced to while you were incarcerated and or in the context of the Emerson Prison Initiative?
No, it was independent of the Emerson Prison Initiative. My involvement with restorative justice came prior to my involvement with the Emerson Prison Initiative. There are restorative justice programs that happen on the inside, and restorative justice practitioners who come inside and teach us about the restorative justice ways. And it's the program that I was involved in. It was an extensive program. It was like, I want to say 8 to 9 months long.
Where was that, if you don't mind me asking?
That was in Concord. MCI Concord, which is now closed down.
Okay.
It was the oldest operational prison in Massachusetts. And it was closed down for infrastructure issues and sinkholes. And I knew an individual who fell through a sinkhole and sued. Yeah, absolutely, and was awarded some money for that.
Well, he should have. Thank God he's okay.
Yeah. Well, he made it, but he left with some lifelong injuries as a result of that.
Terrible.
Yeah, but restorative justice is amazing. The concept is amazing, and it really puts the focus back on what justice is really supposed to do and who it's supposed to serve. Because when you get charged with a crime and then you go to court and you're fighting this charge, it's really you against the Commonwealth. It's not even you against the person who you may have aggrieved. So, and then once you're sentenced and you're locked up and put away in prison, there's not much that the state then does with the family or the victims. they're sent on their way as well.
Yeah.
And it's like, if I really believe in redeeming myself and in repairing the harm that I caused,
Yes.
serving time in a prison is not the ideal way to repair a harm. The way that it makes sense for me to repair a harm is to actually contribute to the well-being of the victims and the people that were aggrieved by your actions.
Come on.
Right?
Yes.
And that's the way a lot of, older civilizations have done it.
Yes.
It's human nature. It's human nature to say, "Oh, I did wrong. Let me find out a way to repair that harm."
Yes.
And a lot of individuals, when they're committing these harms, one of the principles of restorative justice is hurt people hurt people.
That's it.
A lot of these individuals were victims themselves,
Yes.
were victimized themselves.
Yes.
And they may have not even known how to care for someone else.
That's right.
They've been beat down so much.
Yes.
By society and by the environment. So restorative justice is something that it puts the spotlight right back where it belongs on the victim. And how can you repair that harm? And if you can't, because sometimes, things are just too difficult to really repair that directly, you with the victim or the victim's family or those people involved, but the community, because the community is also something. It is something that hurts, that was harmed, and was harmed by a result of a lot of these actions. So and it's important to feel like you are still part of the community. Another principle of restorative justice is that you are not bad intrinsically. Your actions may have been whatever you want to, if you want to use a different word than bad, then that's fine, but it's not you, it's what you may have done.
Correct.
And it takes it away from shame to guilt, right? Because you have a little bit of guilt, that means, okay, I acknowledge that I did something wrong. Shame is totally different. Shame is I'm inherently wrong. Something is inherently wrong with me. And it's a lot hard to come back from that feeling than it is to say, I did something wrong, let me apologize and let me make amends for what I did, as opposed to saying, let me make amends for who I am intrinsically, So that's another important aspect that restorative justice emphasizes, is that inherently there is good in you. Your core self is really good. It's just we need to do some work to dig deep to get to that core self.
I love the restorative justice practices, and we do a lot of that in the context of our reimagined democracy circles around education. To your point, when you got people who are on a block, this territory, my block, your block, my gang, like this foolishness that people embrace. We don't own the streets, right? There's slave owners who, but buy into that foolishness and you got my back, and they don't, because they'll sell you out right in a minute, right? So the point is, what was my point? So, the streets and the blocks and so forth. So in restorative justice practices, what I find beautiful is people who may be on the same block, who maybe don't even speak to each other, but in the restorative justice circle space, now they're engaging you, they're hearing you, they're respecting you, and they're building. And now from that spills out into when you're back on, because you get to recreate these practices once you're empowered wherever you go. And I think it's so profound. Something as simple. First of all, I love that we do the grounding by acknowledging the ground that we're on, our stolen grounds. Like if we're gonna have a conversation, let's start with setting the context, grounding this with truth.
Because that's the primary harm.
That's the primary
That's
harm.
the number one harm. That's the beginning of all of the atrocities that were done in the name of, the Constitution or America and, the founding of this nation. A lot of the atrocities that was built on the blood of the slaves, but of course the indigenous population who were wiped out and their land was stolen. So of course.
So when we talk about restorative justice, right, to be able to acknowledge, talk about harm. So we're acknowledging the harm that was done to stop. Once we've done that, now we can set the foundation to actually have an honest conversation.
Absolutely.
Because it's breaking down this white supremacy or black supremacy. It's about truth supremacy.
Absolutely.
Right. And so to have one person speak and everybody listens, how simple and profound is that?
And it's really hard to do. It's something that's hard to do in prison, because in the prison, you know, you got a lot of individuals who are opinionated, and it's a loud, raucous environment. But in the restorative justice, it gets so deep, and so profound in that space that talking piece is really respected. It's really respected. And if you have that talking piece, everybody's going to pay attention and listen to what you got to say. And nobody could really intervene or interrupt you unless they ask for that talking piece and you are willing to give it, and you give it up. And, you know, you share the talking piece. So that's super important.
I love it. And we're talking about something as volatile and as, you know, the tensions, right? You got family members who ain't even speaking to each other because of different political ideologies. It's such a heated conversation, and people are so wedded to their position.
Right.
So to be in these kind of spaces that we can actually be open-minded.
For sure.
To hear another perspective that maybe you never considered. It makes people who say, like, I don't even want to vote, I don't even want to be involved. This, you know, they realize that, wait a minute, the price that was paid for you to have this right that was not an entitlement. We had to fight for. And it's